Well, hello everybody. This is David T. here at the Country Place. We have a special guest for you today. This is Becky. Now, Becky came to me from a good friend of mine. We have really been wanting to hear her story. Becky, tell us hello for a second.
Hi, my name is Becky. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
Becky, how long you been sober now?
I've been sober a little over 8 months. I was sober 35 years and I stopped going to meetings in 2014. And my defects of character came roaring back. I picked up again and started drinking. And then I started smoking weed again. I lost my husband, my dad, and my brother within 6 months of each other. And then I lost my brother-in-law and sister-in-law to COVID. And then I lost my mind. It's difficult to tell the tale without getting emotional.
Sure.
It's still fresh. I'm about 5 years out from all of that, and my life has completely changed. I had to sell our home, in order for me to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea how much that would affect me. And I bought a little mobile home in Magnolia, Texas. And I am living alone now. And I'm going to meetings every day. I have some wonderful people in my life.
Good for you.
Yeah. Just hanging in there, going to meetings every day. I just had a hip replacement in July. I was in the Navy for 12 years. I'm a disabled veteran.
Tell us something about you being in the Navy. When?
Well, I went into the Navy when I was 20. I was working as a nursing assistant and I finally moved out of my mom and dad's house and was sharing a house with a lady in the rooms in the program. And that job got to be real depressing, working with old folks. And I was looking in the paper for a new job. Back then you could look in the paper for a job. And
the newspaper?
The newspaper.
Oh.
And I saw an ad in the paper and it looked like I fit the qualifications, and I called the number and it was an Army recruiter. And I thought, maybe I'll just go in the Navy. And I went to the recruiting station, and a few months later I was on my way to boot camp. I was 20 years old. I had just turned 20. I knew if I stayed in the same town I grew up in, I wouldn't amount to anything. My parents couldn't afford to pay for college because it was something I had to do on my own. And I enlisted in the Navy. My first duty station was in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I was there for 2 years. I transferred to Charleston, South Carolina. From there, I got married in Cuba, met my first husband there. We had a baby in Charleston. I had a baby. That marriage ended, and I remarried again in 1994 and was married for 25 years. We had 2 children, and then I lost my husband to lung cancer.
Wow. 25 years.
He was my person.
He was. Would you consider him your soulmate?
Oh yeah. And he was in recovery too, so we were a lot together.
How long was he in the program?
He had been sober about 5 years less than me. So about 30. He was about 35 years when he passed away.
Wow. How did y'all meet?
We met in Maryland at an AA meeting at a club, at the Olano Club in Columbia, Maryland.
Oh. The Olano Club is everywhere, isn't it?
Every town has an Olano Club. I come from a family that alcohol was always part of the scenario. And the first time I smoked weed, I was 10 with my dad. He did not want me to find out about it on the streets. So he thought he'd introduce it to me. And I loved it.
At 10 years old.
At 10 years old. We had what we called back then, we had a lot of house parties. And every weekend was a party, so it was cute to watch the kids take sips of beer, and we snuck liquor when everybody passed on and went to bed. The kids did. And so we were always, drinking and drugging was part of the scene. And I loved it from the beginning. I remember in high school, we had smoking courts. Well, that's unheard of. And the motto then was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That was the message. Mm-hmm. And it was in the 70s and the 80s. And it was not just say no. It was everything else.
Yeah.
It was everything else.
Just a common everyday thing.
Yeah.
What you do.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Very common. We'd go to the flagpole, buy our flavor of the day. We'd walk to the power lines. Somebody would go to the liquor store, and we'd have a cake party during the day at school. Walk back to school, get on the bus, and go home. That was a few times a week we did that stuff.
Oh.
Cutting class, we partied.
So how did you graduate from high school?
No, I quit school when I was 16. I got my GED. Mm-hmm. My mother worked for the American Council of Education. She was able to get me all the test study guide. I was not a stupid child. I was smart. I would get that one more cut day and they'd fail me. I'd get straight A's the rest of the time. And I got my GED and graduated before my graduating class and went to work. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be free. There was a lot of physical abuse. My dad was a full-blown alcoholic at that point, and so there was a lot of physical abuse that I dealt with, and I ran away from home all the time. I was in and out of juvie, a lot, and when my mom left my father when I was 17, and the stipulation for him to come home, or for her to come home, was that he go to AA. And so he went to a meeting, and he came home and said, "This is not for me, but it might work for you." And I went to a meeting the next day. An older couple came and picked me up in a little MG. She was bleached blonde. He had a beard down to here. And I went to my first meeting. They told me to get a sponsor, get a big book, and do 90 meetings in 90 days. And they were not nice to me back then. They're not like they are now. Yeah. They told me to sit down and shut up, that my best thinking got me here. And that if I wanted to stay sober, there were things I had to do. And I picked up a lot of one-day chips. I fought this disease, and I didn't want to have it. I was too young, too smart, too pretty. It was just, I could not conceive of it that I had a problem, and I ended up getting 18 months together, and when I went in the Navy, I was sober.
Wow.
And there were a lot of days in boot camp, I would look in the mirror and think, what have you done now?
Especially when you had to stand for attention for quite a long time, right?
A lot of running. We did a lot of running. 6 miles at 4 in the morning with a rifle, and boots. And it's cold in Orlando in December. But I had a blast. I had a blast.
And you were in the service for how long?
12 years. I was a lifer. I was, and I really believe that it was lack of, the discipline that I craved, I got, and the sense of camaraderie, and that I belonged, because I felt like I never quite fit, that it was never good enough. Any of the accomplishments I had when I was a kid, and it was a place where I was acknowledged, that I was able to take pride in who I was and the job I was doing. And I told them I wanted a 9-to-5 job, weekends off, and they said, "You want to be a personnelman?" And that's what I did. I took care of everybody's service records. I got to Cuba. I went to an A school in Meridian, Mississippi, and started drinking again. And when I got to Cuba, I got there on a Friday, and by Monday I had met everybody on the island. And it was just a nonstop party. There was nothing to do but go to the beach and drink. And little did I know, they had an AA group there. And I got sober again. They put me in a outpatient rehab, half days treatment, half days working, and I learned to stay sober again. And I stayed sober for 35 years.
35 years.
And had a lot of life lessons learned the hard way. Some came easy, some not so easy. But
That was some of those.
It's growing up in public, right?
Growing up in public. That's one of the lessons. How about a couple more lessons? Some of those hard lessons.
Learning to be able to speak up to my mom and dad that I was a human being and that it was no longer acceptable to treat me the way I had been treated. And walking through that and processing all of that, I couldn't have done without people in rooms. Learning to do the things that the adulting part of it, the making the phone calls, the getting things done, to provide for myself and provide for my family. I didn't know how to do any of those things. And I learned how to be a human being. I'm grateful, my grandparents my grandfather was a minister. He was a Mason, a 32nd degree Mason, and he was in Knights of Columbus. He did a lot of things to prepare me. He taught me the 23rd Psalm when I was a kid. I went to private school up until 4th grade. I got into public school and went crazy. You could only wear a dress to school, 3 inches, no shorter than 3 inches above your knee. And if you wanted to wear pants, you had to wear pants with a dress. And I always got in trouble for talking, and you weren't allowed to talk when you went to the bathroom.
You're just a perfect alcoholic.
And I just talked. All my report cards had A's and B's. I'm a great student. I just talk too much. And I say it to other women, we tend to, sometimes we get in that pity party and we feel sorry for ourselves, and we are sorry for ourselves, and I had to learn to be strong and know that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that was my mantra for a long, long time.
And so what is your mantra these days?
Probably the same thing. One of the things I learned when I got back this time, I was reading the big book, and it talks about, one of the stories is more about alcoholism, and I have it underlined in my book at home. I should have brought it, but this man was struggling with alcoholism, trying to stop drinking, stayed sober for periods of time and relapsed again. And one of the lines in his story was that, or in how they wrote it, was that he failed to expand his spiritual life. And that hit home for me this time. And so I have found a church that I like. I have found a God that's not a punishing God. And I am able to contribute to the community. And I do go to the library. I do go to these places in the community to be of service. I went to a Veterans Day celebration in the little town where I live, and
where is it?
In Magnolia, Texas.
Oh, okay, I know Magnolia well.
I'm an hour away from you.
Yeah, you are. That is true. You are.
And I'm out in the country, but they had this big to-do for veterans, and it was steak and baked potatoes and salad, and my mother was here with her boyfriend. My mother and I experienced the journey of losing a spouse within a couple of months of each other.
Wow.
She met someone, and they're getting married in December for tax purposes, but they really do like each other. But she's 78, so I know there's hope for me. I just turned 60. So I know there's hope for me, but I have to get my own house in order.
Yeah.
I have to learn to stand on my own 2 feet by myself. One of the things my father always told me, when we went through a lot of hard knocks together, there was abuse involved, but I was an unruly child, and he spent a lot of time chasing me up and down the East Coast and beating my ass because I wouldn't straighten out. And we grew up together. But one of the things he always told me was that I was a winner. He'd say, "You're a winner. You can do it." And that stuck with me. That stuck with me. And he always fought for me. Even I remember even when my mom was mad at me, he would always soften the blow. He would always go to bat. And I remember that. I remember the good. I don't dwell on the bad. I don't dwell on the past anymore.
There's always two sides of that coin,
I say I'm an alcoholic, then I say my name. Because my disease, I have to keep first and foremost in my mind. Yeah. I'm not here for a date. I'm not here for popularity contest.
Right.
I came here to save my ass. Yeah. And God saved my soul.
Yeah. So tell me, what are you doing with your sobriety these days? Where are you headed?
Where am I headed? I thought about going back to school. I married my second husband in '94 and got pregnant right away, and I had been in school full time, and I stopped going to school because I obviously had other things going on, and I have a little bit of debt I'm going to pay off, and I'm probably going to buy another house.
Good for you.
A couple of years, and hopefully get a boyfriend or someone in my life, and I'm finally able to move on and let go of that.
That's a hard thing to let go of.
And I never knew who I was grieving. Whether it was my husband or my dad or my brother, and all of those relationships, in a way, in some aspects, were trauma bonds. I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters that are mad at me, that don't talk to me. And part of that is my behavior, but a lot of it is not. I can't be responsible for someone else's behavior. And I hope that there's some kind of relationship at some point before I'm gone. I don't want them to have any regrets.
Yeah.
There's always something inside of us that need our mom. I need them.
Yeah.
But I have a son, and he's amazing. And he got engaged on Sunday.
Wow.
And they've been together for 12 years, and they finally got engaged. And it was also his birthday. And he had said that he couldn't think of a better gift to give himself than to propose to this woman that he loves so much, that has been there through his insanity.
Are they in any type of recovery?
No, they aren't. But my kids grew up in the rooms. The girls have resentment, but my son has learned some lessons right along with me. He was forgiving of my behavior, and I don't know how that transpired in my daughter's life as far as forgiveness. There's a whole generation of children that have disowned their family, and it's pop psychology, a lot of that. Some of the things you hear is that you don't have to forgive them. That's one of the bents of some psychology today, and that's sad. That's sad. Because I was able to forgive. And one of the things I've learned along the way in life is that life is full of saying goodbye. And that was one of the reasons why I went in the Navy. First of all, it would satisfy my wanderlust, because I always knew I'd be leaving, so I didn't have to commit to you. I'd be leaving. And life is full of saying goodbye. And I've shared that with my children. I know I've shared that with my sons. You know, the life lessons that they've learned.
Doesn't make it any easier.
No.
When it's tugged at your heart.
No, it's very hard.
Yeah.
I want to major in, I want to get my degree in counseling, because we all want to know what's wrong with us, so we can help other people. And yeah, I don't have any really big grandiose plans in my life anymore, David. I've done a ton of things and learned a ton of things. I'd love to do some traveling.
Travel? Tell us some other things that you've done with your life. Where? Let's see, you were in the Navy.
I was in the Navy. I raised 3 children. I was really involved in my home group. I have dressed up in different costumes to accommodate different functions, and
fun.
I have a history of in relationships with different groups that I've been to throughout my sobriety. That is my main focus today, David, is staying sober and helping other women. And I cry in just about every meeting.
Well, good for you.
Because it is, I'm so grateful that I'm here, that I'm alive, that I wasn't successful in killing myself. It is the proverbial foot up your ass. And I can hear my father say, I'm going to put my foot up your ass.
Well, Becky, thank you so much for giving your time to us today here at the Country Place. It's been just a wonderful, wonderful time talking with you. Is there any other further thing that you would like to maybe share with us before we say goodnight to all?
I don't think so. I mean, I know that my thoughts are jumbled. Telling your story is a little nerve-wracking.
It is, isn't it?
There's so much, especially when you're older, you realize how much living you've done and how much you've survived. And I just want to relay to somebody that may be listening that there is always hope. And that there's nothing so bad that you have done that I haven't done, or I don't know somebody else that hasn't done it. You know, we don't get here perfect. And we get here broken. And it's okay to be broken. And there's nowhere to move but up.
Up. That's it. Thank you so much, Becky, for your love and your caring, showing with the people today here on the Country Place.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we really have enjoyed, folks. How about a nice hand for Becky? Thank you so much. Well, this is David T. here at the Country Place, and Becky. Everybody have a wonderful day.
Thanks,
God
John.
bless. Thank you. Bye-bye, folks.